We are very happy and honored that today we are going to interview Reverend Dr. Donald Graves, longtime minister and one of our wise sages. Donald, we're so happy that you could be with us today.
It's a pleasure.
And we'd like to know all about you. From the very beginning, where were you born? Your family, your siblings, tell us about all that.
Okay. I was born in Wichita Falls, Texas, and we lived there for about a year, and we lived all up and down the central part of the state. My dad worked for Community Public Service, which was the gas company in Texas at the time. And so about 14 months after I was born, my brother came along, and when I was 4, we settled in Breckenridge, Texas, a small 6,500 town population, or 6,500 population town west of Fort Worth, and stayed there until midterm sophomore year. My dad got a different job in Abilene, a larger town to the west, so we moved there and graduated high school. Started college, but way too rambunctious, way too restless, and so I dropped out of college and joined the Navy. Went to Japan for a year and Vietnam for a year as a Navy hospital corpsman. Oh. So I worked in the hospital, and both on the ward in dirty surgery, which is infected wounds. So guys from Vietnam would come there, and we would transition them in preparation to come back to the States. Thoracic surgery, gunshot wounds, etc. And then went from there to Vietnam and worked in intensive care unit for my term there. Came back and settled in California because I knew I did not want to live in Texas.
Okay.
I jumped out of Texas into the frying pan called Vietnam, so
okay.
Not really, I guess on the surface, very wise, but incredibly stabilizing in its own way. As it gave me an experience of the world that up to that point I had not. I didn't have. So there in Santa Rosa, California, where I settled, worked initially at a drugstore where it was like the one I'd worked at when I was in high school, and then went into high tech, optical thin film coating.
About what year was this when you?
That would have been, I settled in Santa Rosa in '71, and in fact I got out of the Navy a week after my birthday in 1971. Moved to Santa Rosa, and about 2 years later went to work for this thin film coating company there, optical coating. And then in '74, February of '74, I found a form of liberation that I only had heard about and had notions about. I started meditating. Oh. And a month later, I jumped into the actualization movement game, which let me understand and which gave me incredible perspective along with the meditation. Here I had a completely different perspective about myself and other people and life in general, and it enlarged my horizons about what's possible.
Now, how did you get involved with meditation? I mean, was there some particular teacher that was there? This wasn't learning grit and...
I was going to college at the time there in Santa Rosa, and I heard about transcendental meditation, so I took TM.
Okay.
And started meditating dedicatedly twice a day, like they guide you to do. Never did anything else with TM. All I did was meditate, because that's really what I wanted. I didn't want to join anything. I didn't want to enter somebody's program, or I didn't want to go to Fairfield, and I didn't want to do any of this. I just wanted to meditate. So no, it was no person in particular. It was just a TM instructor there in Santa Rosa at the time who offered the class, and I took it. Okay. Well, I took the induction.
Do you remember who it was?
I have no idea.
Okay. And then how did you get in? Did you attend Loring Gritton's Science Mind Church at some point?
No. When I first attended Santa Rosa Church of Religious Science, they're on Orchard Street, which you remember.
Yeah.
You and Richard were there.
Oh, okay.
And Richard was the minister. A buddy of mine told me, this was in 1982.
Okay.
He told me, hey, you got to come see this church that I found. I said, church? And it was like this, because of my history in Texas. I didn't want it. And so I went, and I played soccer on Sundays with an adult soccer league. And I liked what this big orator, Richard, said that day. It made sense to me. And I only went with my friend Philip to that church because he said something really intriguing. I said, why would I want to go with you to a church? And I did the wording sign, and he said, because they talk like you do. I said, I don't know what that means. What are you talking about? So I decided to go and find out. And you guys sang the peace song at the end, and you probably remember, at least the way I tell the story, and some people haven't liked that way, but I told it this way because that's what my experience was. I walked in, and there were about 80 blue hairs in the audience.
That means old people.
That means somewhere between 85 and dead, right? Kind of like that. So, and here I was, one of the, I don't know, 3 or 4 people who were between 30 and 50. The rest were more advanced. So I would go to church if it didn't conflict with my soccer game. So that went on for about a year, and the following year I changed my priority, and I would play soccer if it didn't intrude with going to church. And I started, and that's, I guess you guys were there in Santa Rosa for about a year, and then there was an interim period. Gosh, what's her name? Little bitty lady, brilliant in this teaching, and she was a very common interim minister at the time. And if you said her name, I absolutely would remember her. And she,
Sarah Akins.
It was Sarah.
That I was just going to say.
It was Sarah.
Yeah.
She was, wow, what a piece of work. So I saw her speak a few times, and back then interim ministry was until you found somebody. It wasn't a regular program. And then Frank Apps and Bonnie came in, and I took Science of Mind 1 from Frank in oh my goodness, I first walked into that church in 1982, so I took Science of Mind 1 from Frank in 1983, and then he wasn't offering Science of Mind 2, but Nancy Black up in Windsor was.
Oh, yes.
And so I took Science of Mind 2 from her. I set a goal. I always wanted to figure out what I was going to be when I grew up. So I set a goal at the beginning of Science of Mind 2 to figure out what I was going to be when I grew up. And the Sunday before the last class, which was on a Monday night, I'm sitting at brunch after church with a half a dozen friends. And the room kind of went away, and I felt heard. It's not like hearing a voice or anything, but I felt heard. You're going to start ministerial school next month. And I laughed out loud, and everybody sitting around the table said, what are you laughing about? I said, you guys are not going to believe what I just got. So I told them that, and around the table they were saying, oh, that is perfect, that is absolutely perfect. I said, no, you guys don't understand. I like driving fast cars. I'm the guy that people come to for the dirty joke of the day. I like looking at pretty women. I don't have very much respect for man's law. I think there's a greater law. And they said, oh, no. So I went to class the next night, and I told Nancy about that. And she said, oh, that's perfect. I said, oh, no, Nancy, you don't understand. Gave her all my excuses. In reflection, it sounded a lot like Moses and Indiana Jones and, all the hero's tale story. I said, I don't want to move my family to Los Angeles, quit my job and go down there. He said, oh, you don't have to. There's a school in San Jose. I said, I don't want to move my family to San Jose. He says, well, actually, you don't have to. You can work during the week and do your internship and do your homework. And then on Saturdays, it's set up in a workshop format where all day Saturday you spend down there in school. And then you come back and you do your internship in the week and you do your homework and you do your reading and you come back and you revisit this every week. And it's on an accelerated program. So it's a 2-year program in 3 years.
Was that Robert
Dr.
Scott?
Robert Scott
Yes.
and Jack Holland.
Yes, wonderful.
It was a wonderful school. The first 3 months we learned how to learn. And I don't know if that's done anymore, but it was a huge gift to my growth and awakening to learn about mind mapping and speed reading and all the super learning techniques,
Wow.
so that we could get through that material and integrate it in an expedited fashion. It was
Great.
brilliantly designed.
Wonderful.
Both were icons.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you went into ministerial school, and what happened then?
I graduated.
Okay. Did you have ideas of where you wanted to do church, or?
Well, I actually wanted to do church in Napa,
Oh,
and because it was close, and I could be around Patty. Patty could be around her family in that area, and we already had kids then. We had twins first time, and the second, about 8 years later, we had a singleton. And we got pregnant, actually, right when I got called to go to ministerial school. So we had a newborn, plus these two twins, and I was okay with staying in the area. I didn't really care where we went, but I was okay with staying in the area, and Patty was more comfortable there.
So did you go to that church?
I
in
went
Canada?
and I talked to, and the minister, I'm not remembering at the time.
Woman.
Yeah, it was a woman. And I went and talked to her about it, and we started talking about and what that might look like, and the story sort of changed over time. So I opened up to other possibilities and was invited to Las Cruces, New Mexico. And that was my first church. So I made all my mistakes in Las Cruces, and then went to Salt Lake City and made them all again, and learned a lot. I learned a lot in Salt Lake. I was there for a total of 17 years. And then from there, went down to Tucson, Arizona. And so those three centers are what really kind of woke me up about this philosophy. Is it's so simple, it's so straightforward, it's so easy, and yet integration takes a while.
Yeah. You learn a lot by doing, don't you?
Only by doing. You know, reading. There's a book that I saw by Helena Rourke, and she was actually a student of Helena Blavatsky. And the book, she started her own form of yoga called Agni Yoga. And the name of the book was Talk Does Not Cook the Rice.
Huh.
And that was one of my mnemonics through that whole period of my life, because I got that embodiment was the key. And embodiment and integration and application, that's the key. So my message today is all about applied metaphysics.
Excellent. So let's see. Let's talk about. You've told me your story.
You asked.
Were you? Have you ever been involved with anything like agent or INTA or?
I went to one INTA conference, and I went to one AGNT conference, and I was so busy in my own center teaching, because I never didn't teach 4 nights a week, Marilyn. And I was at work, I was at the office at 10 o'clock in the morning, and I worked through the day, and then I'd teach class, I'd get out of there at 10 o'clock at night, and that was my routine 4 days a week. And then Sundays, we typically would have church and do board meetings and board activities on Sundays. So I didn't take the time to become really active with any of those international organizations.
Yeah, or how about the local interfaith?
Absolutely, both in Las Cruces and in Salt Lake. In fact, I was in Las Cruces. I was the vice president of the local Ministers Association, as well as the president. During that period I was there, and there were 2 associations there, one a campus ministries and one that was the regular general community. It was a good group of people.
Okay. So tell me, what are your current spiritual? Now you were just. Is this a retirement, or you just left the church?
I've retired from the pulpit.
Okay.
Okay, so pulpit ministry is now behind me. And what I still do is still teach, I still coach, I still counsel. I'm in the process now of recording workshops that can stand alone. They don't need to have interactivity. I'm making myself open to do group coaching, so it's like
You're not retired.
I am not retired. There's no such animal.
No.
You know this.
No,
we just
obviously.
take on different jobs, right?
Obviously,
But I
yeah.
am doing something that about a week before retirement, I was playing with the idea of how much time we spend as being slave owned. And what I mean that is in the biggest sense of the word, that we have some slave master that we bow and scrape to. And I get that that's just an idea, but it's a great metaphor for having something that makes us do something, rather than living from the inside out like we teach. We put something on the outside to pull us out of ourselves or to make us go down a particular path, and it comes across a lot like obligation and duty instead of service. So I'm in that transition of learning how to really come genuinely from that inside out instead of being driven from the outside.
Okay. And tell me, what do you see at the future of Science of Mind and New Thought, and how do you see that in the world?
It's a great question, because Jan and I, my new bride from last year, have joined another couple, and we have co-founded a company called Institute of New Thought. And this institute is about spreading the New Thought message around the planet and facilitating more people having access to the ideas that we teach. And when people realize they're already using what we teach, they'll sort of relax and not themselves approach New Thought or any church like I did with warding sign up, but rather, wow, I already do that. I already designed my own life, and now I can do it more consciously. And so that's really what the Institute is all about. We're creating online classes and workshops, and that's really what I think New Thought is going to. Is New Thought is at a break point where it starts being recognized as, well, of course.
Yes.
So that's one of our agendas with this idea, with an Institute of New Thought, is to spread New Thought's message so that people see that it's the most natural, organic thing that we could one could possibly entertain and practice.
Yes. I think from at least from the 1960s, and a little bit before that, this progress, it has been growing, and it's now like a natural way of thinking.
Absolutely.
And it's...
Because it is a natural way of thinking.
It is. And so it's not way out there and not, in Lulu Land.
I mean, even in this world today, 2017, how many Orthodox, run-of-the-mill, mainstream churches teach New Thought message?
To some degree, whether they know it or recognize it as that, that's...
They may not call it that, and probably wouldn't dare call it that.
Right, exactly.
But they're saying the very same thing.
Absolutely, they are. Yes. So is there anything else that you would like to share with the people that get to know and learn about your story, and words of wisdom, anything about your past, your history, and you've spoken about your future and what you're doing right now, that you'd like to share with us, and give us a few words, wise words of wisdom for those coming and watching this?
Well, I've had a watchword that for me has kept me getting up. My nature is a resilient nature in the first place. I sort of lean that way, as I fall down a lot. And I think it's more important to get up that next time and keep getting up that next time and keep getting up that next time. But with regard to the philosophy and what it provides for anyone who chooses to use it, it gives us the tools. And one of those tools is the perspective to see more clearly every single time. So that we see how things fit together and how okay, that idea works, but the implementation fell down, or I just wasn't ready to go ahead and do it full bore. But it helps us see ourselves and operate more attentively in our lives. And so the spiritual practices that New Thought encourages, from meditation all the way through affirmative prayer, all of the activities, the welcoming and forgiving and open attitude toward others and their cultures and their points of view. New Thought, it was the most natural thing for me. When I first heard it, saw it, I see it everywhere I have traveled. I hear it coming from people's mouths, and they don't know it, like you say. But to keep getting up and keep practicing, it's not that it doesn't work. It's sometimes we don't work it. And when we work it, it always works.
That's true. That's true. Is there anything else you would like to share? Do you have any outstanding students that perhaps have gone on to be world leaders?
Well, there are a couple who have that potential.
Uh-huh. Okay.
And the jury's out. But they absolutely have that potential. They have the integrity. They have the big point of view, and they have a heart of service. They come from that place. At this point, there are only 10 ministers who I have birthed. And I know some people can claim that they have 100 or whatever, but 10, I absolutely know these 10 ministers are solid ministers of the Science of Mind philosophy. And a couple of them are just real shining stars.
Share any names or anything? Okay.
No commitments, because
Okay.
if they see this and they hear that said by me, I don't want them to take that on as a pressure from the outside.
Okay.
I want them to live from it, which I believe they already are.
Great.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, it is. It's really inspiring to watch.
Do you have any last words for the future people, ministers, practitioners, or friends that may be watching?
In the immortal words of Winston Churchill, never, 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 never give up.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's been great, and keep on keeping on.
Bless you, I shall.
Thank you.
Thank you.